The party had kicked into life and I had just twisted the top off my first beer when the phone in my pocket rang. I was in Melbourne for the 50th birthday of my old mate Michael Rowland and was looking forward to a relaxing evening among friends and ABC colleagues. I glanced down at the screen to see who was calling. It was Sally Neighbour. Why would the executive producer of Four Corners be ringing me at 8 o'clock on a Saturday night? For a moment I thought about letting it go through to voicemail. But curiosity won the day. Mark, how would you feel about going to Thailand to cover the cave rescue? It would be a tight turnaround, a fortnight from Monday. The thought of turning around 45 minutes of definitive, enthralling and possibly exclusive television from a remote international location in a mere 2 weeks should have inspired doubt and terror. This is a program that usually budgets a minimum 6 weeks to get a story from conception to broadcast. But like many people, I had been gripped by the story of the kids and their coach stuck in the flooded cave. Sure, Sally, when do I leave? ? Within 48 hours I was in Chiang Rai in northern Thailand, armed with a pair of new gumboots and a crack Four Corners team. Handling the camera work was former Middle East shooter Matt Marsick. Unflappable, Matt would do longer hours than anyone, shooting before dawn until well after dark, and then wrangling data to get pictures back to Sydney. Pulling sound was Rob McKay, a veteran sound recordist whose range of skills included miking up bikini-clad contestants on more than half a dozen Survivor Series from Nicaragua to North Queensland. But arguably the person in our team under the most pressure was Lucy Carter. A former ABC News crime reporter, Lucy had moved on to Four Corners as a researcher, where she had been involved in some of the program's best yarns, including the recent 3-part Trump-Russia series. But the Thai cave rescue would be her first assignment as a producer in the field. It promised to be a true baptism of fire. Our first stop on the ground was the makeshift International Media Centre, home to more than 100 journalists and camera crew. Print reporters tapped away on their laptops under pop-up awnings, while television journalists delivered live cross after live cross back to audiences hungry for the smallest detail or the most incremental development. The media centre was not where Four Corners would find its story. So we headed towards the cave. The rescue operation had already started and 4 of the kids had been successfully brought out. Then another 4 were extracted the next day. The story was moving fast, and that would have consequences for us. We are bringing the program forward to next Monday, Sally said over the phone from Sydney. Not only that, our story would be a special of up to an hour. It was the Tuesday, the final day of the rescue operation. That meant we had less than 6 days to produce the entire story. We didn't have a single interview in the can, and our prospects were bleak. The divers were refusing all interviews until after the rescue was over. They were focused solely on the mission. But even when it was over, there were no guarantees they'd talk. British divers in particular were known to despise the media. Our Thai fixer was being told the Navy SEALs would not be speaking. And the Australian Federal Police media officer had told us the AFP divers and the two independent Australian cave divers, Craig Chorlin and Richard Harris, did not want to do any interviews with anyone. We were there later that Tuesday when news filtered out that the remaining 4 boys and their coach had been rescued. The only death during the operation had been former Thai Navy SEAL Saman Goonan, who had run out of air while delivering tanks to points along the cave. That tragedy brought home the dangers of the rescue and why the divers were so focused on the mission of getting the soccer team out. On the Wednesday morning it was clear we only had 2 days left on the ground to pull our story together. Like other international media producers, Lucy had been frantically making calls, trying to establish contact with the international dive teams. Over breakfast I had tried to reassure her that we would be okay, that someone would give us an interview. The pained look on her face betrayed her utter lack of faith in my exaggerated optimism. In my own mind, I was also starting to think we were going to deliver nothing more than an hour of agency footage, recycled grabs, general vision, and a series of pieces to camera. But then our luck changed. We have the Americans. Lucy looked like she had hit the jackpot. And in a way she had. US military had done a lot of the logistical grunt work for the rescue, and had a team based in Chamber 3 of the cave. The kids and their coach were stuck in Chamber 9. They eventually agreed to give us their mission commander, their dive team coordinator, and their public affairs officer. To borrow a baseball quote from the mission commander, Major Charles Hodges, we had hit a 3-run homer. We raced to their hotel base in Chiang Rai an hour away. On arrival, I went with Matt to set up for the first interview, but Lucy had other plans. She had spied a bunch of sinewy Westerners down by the hotel pool drinking cans of beer. Sidling over, she started eavesdropping as discreetly as she could. She quickly realized these 10 or so men were the British and international divers who had discovered and helped bring the boys and their coach out. When one of the men broke from the pack for a cigarette, Lucy paused. Introducing herself and explaining what Four Corners was and what we were doing, Lucy gleaned from the diver, Gary, his mobile number. She also asked if we could interview the dive team members. It's not a no. And it's not a yes, replied Gary. Call back in an hour. An hour later, with the US interviews in the can, Lucy called back. Gary summoned us to the pool. There, I was invited by the divers, some sporting a somewhat skeptical expression, to pitch to them why Four Corners should get the big break. We were the most respected investigative program on Australian TV, I told them. We wanted the divers to tell the stories in their own words without being bound by the standard 10-second news grabs. There had been a lot of misreporting and misinformation about the rescue, and we wanted the divers to tell us the truth of how it unfolded. And that this would be the definitive account of the rescue, and our story would be seen around the world. Give us a bit of time to discuss it, said Gary. We trudged back to the lobby and waited. Another hour ticked by, and Lucy and I decided to send Gary a message to see how the deliberations were going. "We will do the interviews tomorrow," he messaged back. Thrilled by this breakthrough, we raced back down to the pool to arrange times and locations. By now, the divers' numbers had swelled. Two Australians, Craig Chorlin and Richard Harry Harris, had joined the Brits for a beer. We started chatting and Craig also agreed to an interview the next morning. It turned out he watched and respected Four Corners, although he offered a detailed critique of one recent programme. As for the British divers, they have nominated Jason Mallinson to speak on their behalf. A wiry, earnest man of about 50, Jason was from Huddersfield in West Yorkshire. He was one of the divers who had dragged, swum, and nursed some of the boys through the flooded caves to safety. He agreed to do the interview right then and there as he had to fly out that evening. In his Yorkshire brogue he told their story of the rescues in an understated, but precise fashion, that infused his interview with great credibility. His description of clutching the boys to his body, to stop them being bashed against rocks as he dived them out through narrow channels, feeling his way in water with zero visibility, was heart-stopping, and will live with me always. We had our international scoop. Interviews with Craig, Jason and the three Americans would help fill in the blanks of the cave rescue, while also clearing up misreporting and misinformation. They would also reveal in stunning detail the dangers, risks and bravery of all of those involved in the operation. None of the divers had expected to get all the kids out. But they had. While we had our story, turning it around into a well-fashioned piece in just a few days would take incredible teamwork by the Four Corners crew. While we were filming, interviewing and struggling with poor internet to send home our material from northern Thailand, back in Sydney it was all hands on deck. From EP Sally Neighbour down, everyone dropped everything and threw themselves into finding and ingesting vision, helping with scripting, checking and rechecking facts and information, identifying grabs, and editing the piece itself. To me, this whole episode is a lesson in the value of teamwork, both by the rescuers in the cave in northern Thailand and by all those in Four Corners.